I have some very bad news for you. There is a strong chance that your trainer, your breeder, your vet is wrong. It might be prescribing you the wrong information that's going to accidentally set you up to fail. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more.
Parrots are the third most popular pet in the world, but the #1 most rehomed. Celebrity parrot trainers Dave and Jamie Womack from BirdTricks combine nearly 4 decades of parrot training expertise to help put an end to abandoned parrots as they save parrots one person at a time. Welcome to the Parrot Training Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Jamie Womack.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Parrot Training Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Womack, here with my beautiful wife, Jamie Lee from BirdTricks. And today we're going to be talking about why everybody is wrong. Your breeder, your vet, and maybe even your trainer. What in the world are we talking about? So here's the thing. We've been doing a ton of consults, which is actually where most of the inspiration comes from these podcasts. And during these consults, we are discovering a lot of misinformation. Now, I'm going to backpedal for a second and say that I would like to believe, and I do come from the belief, that all of these people, your breeder, your vet, and your trainers, are all coming from a position of wanting the best for the bird. Here's where it goes incredibly wrong. Breeders, we'll start there. Many breeders that get into breeding they'll breed the bird, they'll give the bird to somebody, and then that person calls us and they say, hey, my bird's eating the diet that my breeder recommended, and it's trash. I mean, it's like
dried fruits and a variety of different types of pellets, for one, that all have different fat contents and nutritional values and vitamins and supplements and minerals and all sorts of things. So your ratios are off the charts.
Yeah, so why does that happen? Well, my theory on this is that when breeders get into breeding, they do it out of a passion for the animal or a passion for making money. And what happens is they do the best intention for their bird, but here's the big catch. Information has changed so much over the last 30 years. So what's happening is 30 years ago, it might have been the only thing to feed your bird seeds and nuts and kind of this junk food diet. And so many of the breeders, that's all they knew, and still today, because they didn't continue their evolution of learning, will give people that mix and say, hey, this is what I recommend. Here's the truth about that, guys. It is easier to switch your bird off of a baby formula to seeds than it is to get them onto anything else. So if you get the bird and he's quote unquote weaned onto seeds, it's because that was easy for the breeder. Okay, so there may be a shortcut they're taking. Then you fast forward and the next set of breeders comes in 25 years ago and they say, hey, whoa, new studies show that this really colorful fruity blend mix is actually the best concoction. It's better than seeds and nuts. So breeders that entered at that time are more likely to give you a bag of fruity Supreme pellets. And sorry, Supreme, that's a terrible pellet. And so they end up with this like handing off bad information to you, the bird owner. Fast forward again another 5 or 10 years and you get people where the breeders are saying, here, feed them this natural Supreme, which is still a really bad pellet. And eventually, as people continue to learn, the breeders become better and better and they end up giving you the better product. So why are they wrong? I mean, I can't even tell you how many consults that we did in the last, today, it's like 7 or 8 today. But in the last month, we've had so many people because it's breeding season that are like, let me go check what my vet gave me or what my breeder gave me. And they hold up a bag of trash, all right? If you want your bird to get diabetes by the time he's like a year old, give him that junk, okay? So I don't know if you want to add that before I go into another area.
Yeah, I was remembering a client that we visit frequently in Canada, and he buys his bird food in bulk.
Yeah.
And I mean, serious bulk. This is bigger than the 50-pound bags that we offer in bulk. And this thing was giant. He kept it in a huge walk-in freezer. And I would have put money on the fact that it wasn't even bird food. I remember challenging him. I was like, there's no way this is a pellet.
It looked like dog kibble.
It looked like dog kibble. It was actually in the shape of bones. like, you know how they would do for dogs, they give like dog bones and stuff. It was in that shape. So I'm literally sitting there going, this is not bird food. There is no way this is bird food. He had to take me into the walk-in freezer and show me the label for me to believe that it was actually bird food. And that was exactly his story. I was like, hey, why are you feeding this? And he was like, oh, well, my breeder's given me this for the last 15 years. My bird's been on this his whole life. Like, this is what I got from him. This is what I continue to get. He always bought it in bulk. You know, he got a great deal on it, et cetera, and never thought to evolve or to change or look up information that might have been better for the bird. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they don't think to evolve with everything and with the growth of nutrition and health and everything that has to do with your bird.
So here's another pattern we're seeing with veterinary offices, okay? So unless you have an avian certified special vet that's going out there and publishing books and studying and going in the field 6 months a year to learn, your vet's probably behind on the times. So not to bash on all vets, because that's certainly not the intention. There's a lot of great vets out there that continue to evolve, and there's a lot of great vets that stopped learning 20 years ago. But here's the problem with that. A lot of the vets are recommending that junk pellet because they haven't kept up on what's happening, what the newer and the better, why cold press is better, why you should be making fresh chop for your birds, why they shouldn't have food in their cage all day, why seeds and nuts are terrible, why if you have a hyacinth, maybe you shouldn't give them macadamia nuts all day long. Different techniques to do that, to make it in your favor as well as keep the bird healthy. They aren't keeping up on it. And let's be real, there's more money in researching and taking care of dogs and cats. And so that's where vets, they go there, they learn that, and it's been studied for years and years and years. So what's happening is all these veterinary offices who really do mean the best, and I truly believe that, they stopped trying to evolve and learn. And so whenever they graduated from school, that's the information they're teaching you now. I had this problem in high school. I didn't understand why the teachers taught me anything, because everything they were teaching by default was 10, 15, 20 years old. And the same thing is happening in the bird industry. I found in personal life, when I have the most growth, it's because I'm going to people that are currently doing what I'm trying to achieve, or people in similar fields that complement where I'm trying to go in my personal life, my business life, my professional life, everything that I'm trying to achieve. I'm looking for people that are actively doing it. So I jump back. Is your vet actively going out and researching? Because things change. You know, our cookbook is a perfect example. We thought we were doing the best by our birds, and then Bondi got really sick about 10 years ago, and that's where the cookbook was born. We went to an avian vet who said, oh, wow, you know, here, and he continued to research and find things that allowed us to help produce that book, and now our birds are in great health. And you know what? 10 years from now, I hope we have to rewrite it. I hope that we continue to learn, because that means that we're evolving as trainers. And as, you know, I don't consider myself a health expert by any means. My focus has always been on the training, but even on the training, I still read Scientific American Mind. I still am out there, every time we do our consults, we're debriefing saying, you know what? There's a deeper level to this. And we're constantly trying to evolve. Doesn't mean we're better than anybody. That's not where I'm going. Here's my point. My point is, we all start someplace. We all slowly grow. Jamie and I didn't go to school for this. This is us continually learning, asking every single person we could who's in the field, hey, what can we learn from you? And what are you actively doing? How can we continue to evolve our learning process with you? And every time we hit a wall, we don't just say, oh, well, that's just because that's the way the bird is. We try to find a way to go and find a new solution. So you have to continue to evolve.
And I would say also one of the things with training and behavior is we've kind of always looked outside of the avian world as well and talked with other types of trainers that work with animals that you simply cannot force to do something, because that's really the mentality that we want to use with birds. We don't want to have to physically manipulate them and make them try to do something. We've never come at it from that approach. So we want to talk to the guy that's training a lion, hands-on,
Exactly.
or the person that's working, you know, with animals that you cannot force it to do something because it's bigger and stronger than you. And you have to learn and have that respect for the animal and be able to have that open communication and find ways to get the animal to do what you think is a good idea. But you have to figure out ways to make the animal make that choice or manipulate the animal into making that choice. And so I think that when you have to think that way in order to train animals, it really broadens your horizon and makes you think outside the box a lot more, and it makes you kind of put your heads together. And I think that's a really healthy mentality to have, is that there's always a way around, and whether or not you need to go seek that information or get some ideas, I think it's really good to have, you know, a body of resources. And I still remember all the trainers that we would call upon and be like, hey, how'd you do it with the dolphin? Or or, you know, like, how did it go with the penguin? And it's really interesting to hear how other trainers work with other animals, and it kind of gives you ideas. Even though you may not be able to apply that exact technique, it makes you think outside the box and can often give you inspiration.
One of my favorite tips on this is every time I travel, which is about every day, I go into the Hudson newsstand and I pick out the newest Scientific American Mind magazine. I'll browse through it. If there's an article that catches my mind or my attention, I will go read that, and then I won't just read it empty. I'll go through and I'll try to say, like, okay, how could that apply to people? How could that apply to a bird? How could it apply to free flight specifically? And I'm not saying this to try to pat ourselves on the back. I'm saying this to warn you of people out there and where that advice is coming from. Because if you have initials behind your name, you by default should be respected as the expert. We don't have initials after our name. We didn't go to school for this. But I would like to believe that we continue to learn and educate ourselves so that we can pass on the newest, most reliable information to you. So I mentioned that your breeder might be wrong, your vet might be wrong. Now let's talk about your trainers. You've heard me say now for the last 13 minutes how we are constantly trying to push and evolve. Here's the challenge with this. Every time we get a new free flight student, I say, hey, you know, and even this is with consults. If we have people buy 2-3 consults and we do these through FaceTime or Skype or whatever it is, anytime we get these, I say, hey, here's how this works. All I ask is that while we're coaching you towards whatever goal you have, please follow just our advice. And that has nothing to do with if I think ours is better than somebody else's. That's not the case, and I think it's irrelevant. What it does apply to is we had a fantastic student come to us today, and they said, hey, I actually taught myself how to free fly. I said, cool. And so as she was speaking, we noticed that she was pulling bits and pieces from different trainers. And she was probably the most obvious example for me to see, but it happens on micro levels as well. Here's the challenge with that. If somebody wants to learn at liberty flying, where you let the bird loose at 7 a.m. and it comes back at 7 p.m., it is a totally different training style than what we teach, freestyle flying. And so if you're taking advice from somebody who has that background as opposed to somebody who has our background, hey, look, the end result, your bird's going to get outside. It should fly safely. You know, I do have a personal belief of which one may be safer than the other one. But either way, if they go with our training program or somebody else's program, or they create it themselves, it's really important that they stick to whoever's training program they go with and follow that advice. And I say that, please, if you feel there's other trainers out there that are better than us, or that you resonate with better, or that doesn't offend you, or whatever it may be, by all means, please go with them. If you feel that connection, it's not about, hey, we think we're better. It's not that at all. It's about making sure that you're following the right path that's going to take you where you want to go. Yeah, really, and what I tend to tell students is you need to pick a lane. You know, we actually recently worked with a free flight student who was getting different information from a breeder whom she got the bird from, and then a friend who was also a breeder, but not the breeder of her bird. And she called us and was just like, I'm not really sure what to do. And I was like, hey, you need to just pick a lane. Pick a person you're going to listen to because you can't take advice from both of them and try to mesh it into one. It's just not going to work. You're going to be so super confused, and each person is going to get frustrated helping you because they're going to be giving you advice based on the advice they already gave you, not realizing you're taking advice from someone else, and it's just messing the whole thing up because you just can't work like that. So she picked one person and took that advice, and I feel like it's kind of the same when you're in a program with a trainer. If we're consulting with you about something and you go and you modify it by seeing what somebody else does and you implement that, it may not resonate with where we're trying to take you, or it may be later down the road that gets implemented, because there's definitely a certain
I don't know if I want to call it a procedure, but there's like a certain
there's a process.
order that you kind of go in.
To do things,
yeah, there's
for sure.
steps that build on each other, and you need to go in a certain order with a lot of things to be able to build that solid foundation so that you really have ground to stand on with your training. Whereas if you don't and you start skipping steps or cutting corners, that's where things get really sloppy and miscommunicated to the bird. So we're always about clear communication, because that's when you're going to get the best results. That's when you're going to have the respect and the relationship that you really want with the bird, because you're going to both understand each other and know what the other I guess animal or person. Yeah, I know. I just referred to our birds as another person, but you're going to understand each other a lot better.
Yeah. So how do you tell if your vet is lying to you on accident, right? So let's start there. Go to your vet and see, are they only trying to sell you the brands of food that they sell in their stores? Because let's face it, yes, they got into taking care of animals because they had a passion for it, but there's also a business behind it, right? And there's no, I don't have anything against them running it as a business, but also take a look and see, like, what's their motive behind promoting Harrison's, for example. Harrison's is a great pellet for specific situations. It's probably, in my opinion, not the best pellet for every situation.
Yeah, the other thing about that is that I feel like Harrison's is more of a pellet that is almost prescribed based on what the ingredients are. And back in the day, we fed high potency pellets because I was like, oh wow, an awesome boost in all the vitamins and minerals and all these amazing things, like how could you go wrong? And I didn't realize that would lead to hypervitaminosis and all these different things, and my bird actually turned greasy red from it. And it was like, I didn't realize that was for breeding birds or sick birds or birds that actually need that boost. I thought giving that boost on a daily was a great thing. I had no idea. And I'm not the only one, because we've had consultations, and anytime somebody mentions that brand, I'm like, which one? Because really they should have you fill out something, like they should, or put something that's like, hey, is your bird sick or breeding? Does your bird actually need this? Were you recommended by a vet and like prescribed this for a certain amount of time? Because it's really important to understand what you're putting into your bird's body, because you're the one presenting it and then they're putting it in. So I mean, you're responsible.
Yeah, and here's the other thing on that. When you go into the vet and you're like, oh hey, I got the Harrison's. Oh, which one? I don't remember. Hey, let me look at your file. Oh, it's high potency. Yeah, we'll grab that for you. The secretary isn't a bird expert. The vet should be. So they're going to say, yeah, this is what you had last time. Perfect. Yeah, my bird loves it. I couldn't get him to eat anything. And then we tried this and now he loves it. So of course, that's where a lot of people accidentally get stuck feeding a particular pellet. And I don't mean to pick on Harrison's, because there is a great purpose for a certain time for some of their birds for some situations, right? So that's not the intention at all, but be very cautious that you don't just go back to the vet and say, hey, yeah, can I get more of that? Go back to the vet, schedule an appointment, and say, hey, do I still need to be giving this food? Or simply ask us, and we can help guide you in the right direction, because we are constantly trying to evolve as trainers, as somebody called us psychologists the other day. Thank you.
That's really just this guy.
We're not, but we're trying to relay that information the best we can in an applicable way. And thank you for those comments, by the way, because I feel like it's resonating with people in a way that some of our other content may not.
Yeah, somebody called us the other day and they were just like, oh, I want your advice on working with people. And I was like, take it away, Dave.
So that's a pretty hard-hitting podcast for you guys, realizing that, hey, you know what? Unless your mentor or your coach is continually evolving, it's time to cut the cord and find somebody who is. And when you find that person, whether it's your vet, whether it's your trainer, whether it's your, what was the third one I said?
Did you say breeder?
Your breeder. Make sure that you stick with those people and continue to support those.
Yeah.
And always follow up and always check it.
Yeah, and I will say, we did talk to another client. We talked to a lot of clients today. We talked to one who had a really bad experience with a breeder who apparently did everything all these amazing ways, and it was so impressive, and then she found out she had been lying about it, and it was too late. She already put the deposit on the bird. If you guys have those type of experiences, put it out there. Leave a review somewhere so that somebody else understands what they might be getting into and can avoid that situation. I know it doesn't always feel good to leave a bad review like that, but when it comes to an animal's safety and just overall the fact that it could have died in that situation, you really need to be putting it out there to help other people make the right educated decision.
Here's a challenge.
My 2 cents.
Yeah, is this lady was fortunately the right person to be thrown into this situation. But I feel so terrible for her because the breeder had some personal issues and health issues that made them kind of try to kick this bird out way too early. And
onto someone who had no experience having a bird that young. So those sort of situations, please make more people aware of them. Just to, you know, it's not, we were also put in that situation a lot of years ago, taking birds on way too early, and I just backed out of the whole situation because it freaked me out. So just be really mindful of that, and the people that do well, please spread that information as well.
Absolutely.
So that everybody can benefit.
Yeah, and don't feel like you're bullying the breeder. Just say, hey, you know, here was my situation with that. The individual we're talking about is going to be somebody that doesn't want to share that information, I think. And so anyway, don't feel like you're bullying the breeder. You know, do it in a tasteful way. But that's it. We are out of time here. So my stopwatch over here is telling me.
Yeah, 5 seconds.
I got 5 seconds. So ladies and gentlemen, leave your comments. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Told you.
Thanks for listening to the Parrot Training Podcast with Dave and Jamie Womack. New episodes released every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast.